Whenever Game Freak adds on to the National Pokédex, the pseudo-legendary Pokemon usually comes right before the final legendary entries in the list. So today I'm going to play a pseudo-legendary because this is the penultimate FireRed video of the year. Today, I'm going to beat FireRed with only the Tyranitar-line. If you don't know my content, here are the rules. We're going to be evolving throughout today's playthrough, and that's particularly painful because Larvitar, as a pseudo-legendary first stage Pokemon, has a slow growth rate. Its base stats are also not particularly good. 50 HP, 64 attack, 50 defense, and special defense, 41 speed, and 45 special attack. Now, I played this thing earlier in the year in Pokemon Crystal, and it honestly did a lot better than I was expecting as a rock ground type, which takes 4 times damage from water and grass moves. Throughout the year, I have had some rock types really excel, like Lunatone and Solrock, and we've also had rock types fall very short, like Nosepass and Onix. I'm hoping that starting as the Larvitar is going to make this run more similar to how it felt in Crystal version, and I'm really hoping that this run is going to feel easier than Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite, which I did last year in FireRed. Well, first of all, we have to start with some other bad news, because Larvitar starts with Bite and Leer. Yeah, same as Generation 2, absolutely awful starting set, a special move in combination with a move that lowers defense. Then at level 8, it gets Sandstorm, and at level 15, it gets Screech, so you can combo this move together with Leer for ultimate effects. Finally, at level 22, it learns Rock Slide, its first physical move, and then Thrash at level 29. It's going to evolve into Pupitar at level 30, and then Tyranitar at level 55. And at that point, it will lose its ground typing and become a Rock Dark type. That's a little bit ironic within FireRed, just because Misty and Erica will both be defeated by the time I'm level 55. Now, there's some weird stuff going on with FireRed and evolutions which are not contained within the Kanto Pokédex. We're going to talk about those later into this run, but for now, I'm starting out with Larvitar and headed towards Brock. I think that taking a victory over him is going to be fairly straightforward because I have access to a special move. This is the upside of Bite not making any sense in Generation 2 and 3. I still take my time in the forest, completing all of the optional trainers to level up as much as possible since Larvitar is quite weak, especially when using its special attack stat. I defeat Camper Liam inside Brock's gym. This levels Larvitar up to level 12, which is 1 level shy of a damage rounding threshold, but I think I should be able to take on Brock because I resist normal and rock type moves. Plus Bite's special, and his Pokemon have terrible special defense stats. Let's see how this goes. Geodude's up first. I go for Bite. It does about a third, and Tackle is only doing 2 damage per hit, which is perfect. By the way, the Geodude does not have a rock type move in FireRed, so I can knock this thing out almost for free. It goes for Defense Curl on the second turn, so I only took 2 points of damage before the Onix. Turn 1, it goes for Bind. Unlike in Generation 1, I can still attack when this move is afflicting me, and Bite is doing about a fifth. It looks like it's going to be a 5 hit. Now you're going to notice here that Onix is not attacking me with Rock Tomb, which would obviously do the most damage. The reason is simple. The AI views this move as speed control, so if my Pokemon is slower than the Onix, Rock Tomb is not going to get selected unless it has enough damage to knock my Pokemon out, which currently it doesn't. So Onix is just chipping away with Tackle and Bind, giving Larvitar the time it needs to get a nice critical hit and finish Onix. Okay, you'll notice that I forgot to talk about the TMs, HMs, and tutor moves. Actually, I didn't forget. I wanted to save this specifically for after Brock, because while his badge does boost my attack stat, which seems like it would pair fantastically well with the TM for Rock Tomb, for some strange reason, Game Freak does not allow Larvitar to learn Rock Tomb. It can learn the Sandstorm TM, as well as learn that move through Level Up, and it can also learn Rock Slide through Level Up and through Tutor, but not Rock Tomb, for some arbitrary reason. Eventually when I evolve into Tyranitar, then I can learn Rock Tomb, but obviously that's going to be far too late. For now, Larvitar and Pupitar both have a greatly reduced TM and HM learn set when compared with their final evolution. I think the relevant moves here are Dig and Brick Break, which I am going to get access to in the next section of the game. On Route 3, you're going to notice that I fight every single trainer, like everyone. Normally this guy that you have to jump over a little ledge to fight, he only has 1 Spearow, his name's Calvin. I almost always skip him, but in this case, I'm not going to. I even go back to the Pokemon Center so I can continue my grind. The reason is I have to face Misty, and even if I evolve to a Pupitar, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to outspeed the Starmie. And I assume when it uses Water Pulse, if I haven't evolved to Pupitar, I'm probably going to get 1 hit. So I need to invest right now in gaining as much experience as possible, especially prior to Cerulean City. Because once I jump over the ledge into the city, it's really hard to get back to this area of the map before defeating Misty. Before Mount Moon, I grabbed the Person Berry. This will help against Misty, just in case I survive water pulses. And then inside the cave, I continue my training spree. 4 optional trainers, then I grab the rare candy. I have to go back to heal. This is kind of annoying. I wish I had more than one attacking move. I fight 4 more trainers, once again have to backtrack to heal. This time I grab the escape rope to do it though, so that makes things a little bit faster. In the final areas of this cave, I fight 3 more trainers. That's it for people in Mount Moon. I grab the dome fossil and then proceed into Cerulean City. Skipping the move tutors because Larvitar does not learn Mega Punch or Mega Kick. It looks like it should be able to at least kick things, maybe punch things, but apparently no, it's just far too baby. I think of all the Pokemon I've played in Generation 3, Larvitar's move pool makes the least sense so far. There are so many confounding choices. It feels like the choice to give it Bite and Leer was made before Bite was turned into a dark move, which is special. And then after they made this update, they just never changed Leer or Screech. And then they didn't update the moveset when it went from Generation 2 into Generation 3. In Generation 4, it does start with the same learn set, but finally it makes sense because Bite is physical. Well, I think I've bemoaned its moveset far too much. Let's head into Misty's gym and do some extra training. I am doing this because the rival has a Bulbasaur, and it's going to hit for 4 times damage with Vine Whip. Plus, it can put Larvitar to sleep, so I'm really not looking forward to battling him. The problem is, with a slow growth rate, once I defeat both of the trainers in the gym, I'm not even level 21 yet. And I wanted to get to 22 to get Rock Slide before the rival, but it doesn't look like that's happening. So I don't want to use my rare candies yet because I'm a slow growth rate and I'm going to need them for the late game. Let's take on the rival now and see what happens at level 20. I am not optimistic about this. Pidgeotto's first. I wish I had a rock type move. Luckily, it does not use Sand Attack, instead choosing Quick Attack on the first turn. But because Bite is doing so little, it's going to be a 4 hit, and as a result I get hit by 1 Sand Attack before knocking it out. Then the rival chooses Bulbasaur, so it's his second Pokemon. I do less than a quarter, at least that's what it looks like. Vine Whip hits, and Larvitar survives on 1 hit point. Now I am faster than the grass type, so I could potentially flinch over and over again and then win, but that doesn't happen and I faint. I did take the reset, but it doesn't really make that much sense. I think I should have blacked out there and took the experience from the Pidgeotto. Anyways, I train on wild Pokemon in the only place where they are available at this point in the game, level up to 22, and teach Rock Slide in the place of Leer. Okay, so I'm a Poketuber now, and other Poketubers like to say things like, if it isn't 100% accurate, then it's 50% accurate. And of course that philosophy applies to Rock Slide. It just misses the Bulbasaur, then it puts me to sleep, and I have another loss against the rival. Also, Rock Slide does not one-shot the Bulbasaur, so it can still just put me to sleep and knock me out with Vine Whip even when Rock Slide connects. What has to happen here is a flinch on the Bulbasaur, then I can knock it out with 2 hits and move on to the Abra, which of course is free because it only has Teleport. Rattata is also essentially free because it only has normal type damage dealing moves. Okay, after the rival departs, I'm going to head north onto Nugget Bridge, and here I want to draw your attention to Camper Ethan, the guy with Mankey. It has Low Kick and Karate Chop, 2 moves that are going to be super effective. But remember, they only do 2 times damage because of my current typing. When I become Tyranitar, then these fighting type moves are going to hit really hard, which makes me extremely worried for Bruno in the late game. Not the first time around the league, he's usually not a problem there, but the second time around, I think he's going to be quite challenging. Luckily today, Camper Liam completely drops the ball. After I miss once with Rock Slide, then Mankey goes for Leer and doesn't finish Larvitar. As a result, I take the win. On Route 25, I move the camper out of the way and grab the TM for Secret Power. Finally, a reliable move that is physical. By the way, I'm going to delete Sandstorm here because in Generation 3, it does not boost your special defense and it only does 1/16 damage per turn. Outside of Cerulean City, I finish off the Rocket Grunt. He has a fighting type, but it doesn't really do anything. The Machop just goes for Leer once again. By the way, Leer is really making a name for itself today, being absolutely useless. Larvitar had it. Now all these fighting types are using it against me when they should be attacking. What a bad move. With him defeated, I get access to the Dig TM, and this is going to be quite good because I have access to the same type attack bonus with it. Before I teach it, I do so much training, and I mean so much training. Literally every trainer on Route 6, and then I even go to Route 11, a place I very rarely fight trainers in FireRed, to clear this area out for more experience. During this training, I teach Dig in the place of Screech, and with it, my moveset is actually quite diverse. I've got a special move, which is now useful in some scenarios, and then I have 2 same type attack bonus moves alongside Secret Power, which has a good secondary effect. Typically, it's going to inflict paralysis. Now, my goal is to level up to 30 to evolve as soon as possible, and we need to talk about evolution now. In FireRed, they made it so that if the Pokemon's species index that you're evolving into is over 151, then the Pokemon will just stop evolving until you have obtained the National Dex, which only can be done after you complete all of the badges in the game. Now, there are potentially 2 ways to look at doing viable FireRed solo challenges. One is to abide by this rule so that I can't evolve my Larvitar until I defeat the champion and obtain the National Dex. The other is to change this requirement so that Larvitar can naturally level up. Now, I want to eventually play this game with Pokemon from Generation 2, 3, and 4, so I don't think keeping this requirement in place makes much sense for the flavor of this series. So today I have modded it out in order to have my Larvitar evolve into Pupitar. Now the base stat improvements that come alongside this evolution are pretty major, 20 in every stat with the exception of speed, the one stat that I really need. It only gets increased by 10 points. Because of that, my Pupitar only has 52 speed and Misty's Starmie has 53. Luckily, there's still a little bit of training to be done on the SSN. I level up to 31, which gives me 54 speed, so now I'm going to move first against Misty. I also grabbed the TM for Brick Break, which seems like a strange move for Pupitar to be able to learn. Isn't Brick Break smashing a brick with like a karate chop? That's what I think it is. I always envision this kind of scene whenever I think of Brick Break as a move. Pupitar doesn't have any arms. How does it do that? I don't know, but I'm going to teach this move in the place of Bite, so now I have fighting type coverage and another physical move. The rival battle is much easier this time. Rockslide one-shots the Pidgeotto. Next he sends in Ivysaur. I miss. I can't believe I miss. I get put to sleep. Luckily, I have Shed Skin now as my ability, so I'm able to wake up right away and use Rock Slide, which one-shots the Grass type. Kadabra follows. I'm actually faster, and I can knock it out with a single Secret Power, and like a brick, Raticate is broken by my fighting type move. Okay, now, time for Misty. Okay, I'm level 32, a mid-stage evolution. Pupitar also looks awesome. Great back sprite, by the way. Game Freak did a great job with it. Rockslide's able to one-shot the Staryu, and then Starmie comes in. I'm faster. I'm hoping that I can survive 1 hit and knock it out over 2 turns. I choose Rockslide for the most possible damage, and I actually 1-hit. So Misty was really easy after evolution. Maybe I could have done it as a Larvitar? I don't know. That seems risky. She would have outsped me in that case. Next is Surge, and then we're going to move on to the mid-game. Well, first we have to get to Celadon City, and after I defeat Picnic or Alicia, I'm going to pick up the TM for Aerial Ace. Right now this seems strange, Pupitar can't learn it, but Tyranitar can. In this area, I do some optional training against people that I know give decent experience yields, like this guy who has 2 Beedrill. I think in the next section of the game, like the prior section of the game, the best strategy for this evolutionary line is going to be to evolve as soon as possible. Once Pupitar sheds its skin and becomes a Tyranitar, then this run is going to get so much easier. Inside the Rocket Hideout, I grabbed the Black Glasses, which seems like a great item to use in combination with Crunch once evolved into a Tyranitar. Although, I'm going to mention, I do pick this item up, but I don't use it. Like with Bite, Crunch is a special move, and Tyranitar is not great when using it. But also, you'll notice in the late game, I'm just playing slightly inefficiently, and there are some times when I could have equipped this held item, but I just chose not to save a little bit of bag time. Okay, Giovanni, I have Brick Break. All of his Pokemon are weak to it. I don't one-shot the Onix. It just barely survives. I have to 2-hit the Kangaskhan, but luckily the Rhyhorn is a 1-hit. Inside the department store, I purchased myself 4 protein, increasing my attack stat, and then I face the rival in Pokemon Tower. This one's really easy. Once again, I can one-shot the Ivysaur so it doesn't get a sleep powder off. Luckily, I didn't miss. For once. Rockslide has really been letting me down against his ace. Now, the Gyarados does have Intimidate, and I could use Substitute, but I'm not sure that's the best play with Tyranitar. I think it's probably going to be best prepared for the rest of the game if its moveset is very offensively oriented. So I'm not going to be teaching Substitute for now. The ghosts are easy to finish off. I head south of Lavender Town and grab the TM for Return, and then I do a bunch of optional training on Cycling Road. This finishes up with Biker William, of course, and when I defeat him, I am level 42. Still 13 levels away from Pupitar's final evolution. After completing the Safari Zone inside Erica's gym, I continue my training up to level 43. I decided to take on Erica next. Now, I'm not sure if this is the best idea. Let's see. Now it is possible to skip her until much later into the playthrough. That said, Rockslide one-shots the Victory Bell, then the Vileplume comes out and it just barely survives, but I inflict a flinch. As a result, it's also free after she uses a Hyper Potion. That leaves only Tangela, her lowest leveled Pokemon, and it does no Giga Drain, but Rockslide just one-hits, so she wasn't a problem. Without the flinch though, I think things could have been sketchy here. Maybe the Vileplume would have done devastating damage with its Giga Drain. Next, I decided to continue my training in Sylph. Here I level up to 47 where I can learn Crunch. Now I do think it's going to be good to teach this in the place of a move like Dig or Secret Power, which are kind of falling off in effectiveness at this point in the run. After completing most of the trainers in Sylph, I go back to Koga's gym to continue my training. Here I level up to 49. I briefly debated if I should use rare candies to get Tyranitar now before Koga, but I decided against it and took on the Poison type specialist. Not having Dig for this battle isn't a huge deal because Rockslide is pretty good anyway, and only one of his Pokemon actually takes damage from ground type moves. It's Muck. I one-shot the Coughing, have to two-shot the Muck after it uses Acid Armor. Luckily I have enough damage, so it's not able to set up with Minimize and get really annoying. The second Coughing goes down, leaving only Koga's Wheezing. I go for Rockslide, it does just under half it looks like. I get hit by Sludge, luckily it doesn't poison. I do have a Pecha Berry just in case, and my next Rockslide rolls better damage, so Wheezing faints. I go to the Fighting Dojo next to train, but this only brings me partway through level 50. I've had some other random trainers like these Bird Keepers, as well as a bunch of other people that I missed in Sylph, but the slow growth rate is really becoming an impediment. I only get to level 52. I'm not going to reach 55 just training alone, so I'm going to use rare candies now to go up to level 55 to get Tyranitar. This evolution brings with it a major stat increase, a base stat total increase of 190. Tyranitar's stats are now 100 HP, but only 61 speed, although its other stats are kind of outrageous. 134 attack, 110 defense, 95 special attack, and 100 special defense. It's essentially ready to steamroll the game now, especially because it's over-leveled. That means its speed stat, while technically a liability, it's not really going to be in this scenario. I'm fighting Pokemon around level 40 with it, so the rivals team doesn't even have a single member that's faster than Tyranitar. By the way, I want to say, its back sprite makes it look kind of cute, not as intimidating as I was expecting. She looks more like Silly Mad, and I'm saying she because my Tyranitar is female. This is sometimes relevant in case I need to use attract strategies later into the game. Hopefully it won't come to that though. Okay, Giovanni. Yeah, we crushed Giovanni. No problems here. Sabrina's coming up next. I decided to upgrade my moveset here. Secret Power isn't very useful anymore, so I'm going to teach Aerial Ace in its place for better type coverage. And as a Dark type against a Psychic type specialist, obviously this fight is simple. Crunch for the Kadabra, Aerial Ace for the Venomoth, Crunch for the Mr. Mime, and the Alakazam. The thing is, Sabrina's team can essentially do nothing to me because 3 of her members have no moves that damage Dark types. The only Pokemon here that can actually inflict damage to Tyranitar is the Venomoth, which is fitting. It's a bug type. Don't worry, I'm only going to go that far. Let's head to Cinnabar Island now. Whenever I'm watching my FireRed footage, I'm always thinking to myself, why haven't I taught Earthquake? I've been to Sylph already. It makes sense to have this powerful ground type move. And then I remember that that's only in Generation 1. In Generation 3, Earthquake is the TM you get from Giovanni, so I don't have access to it yet. As I explore Pokemon Mansion, I think this is as good of a time as any to go through Tyranitar's improved move pool. And I mean seriously improved. Pupitar and Larvitars easily fit within the window that I have available to me on the right hand side of the screen, but Tyranitar's hardly does. Everything is very small now. It gets ice moves, electric moves, fire moves, ground moves, fighting moves, basically a ton of stuff from the move tutors. No Swords Dance though, that's a little bit unfortunate. And just for good measure, it also gets coverage with things like Dragon Claw. Essentially, if you want a type to have coverage, you have access to it. This learn set looks like Rhydon from Generation 1, and in a lot of ways, Tyranitar is an improved version of that Pokemon. Okay, with the mansion out of the way, now let's take on Blaine. This is the first battle where Intimidate starts to become annoying. The Growlithe as well as the Arcanine can lower my attack stat. That said, Rock Slide is super effective, and even after -1, I'm able to one-shot the Growlithe, the Ponyta, and the Rapidash. With -2 from the Arcanine, I was pretty sure I was not going to get the one hit, but I get a crit in this case, so Blaine's ace faints. That was a really easy battle. Next is Warren inside the Viridian City Gym. I always mention this battle. It was really annoying with Snorlax last week. This time, Poison Point does activate. Luckily though, for Tyranitar, it isn't having problems knocking his Pokemon out. Well, until the Nidoqueen, it survives, does some damage with Double Kick, which actually does a lot because it's 4 times damage. I take poison damage, Warren uses a Hyper Potion, and at the perfect moment, I crit with Crunch. That knocks the Nidoqueen out and lets me move on to the Rhyhorn. Here with special damage, I can one-shot and Tyranitar makes it to Giovanni. I generally make fun of Giovanni and FireRed, but today I'm not going to do that. While I one-shot the Rhyhorn and the Dugtrio, the Nidoqueen and the Nidoking are more complex. The first of these inflicts poison with Poison Point, and then does a lot of damage with Earthquake. Then after multiple Hyper Potions on the Nidoqueen which stall me out, causing poison damage to stack up, the Nidoking survives my hit, uses Earthquake, and Tyranitar faints. So what's my solution here? Well, let's talk about Crunch. This is a weird move. In Generation 2 and 3, it is a special move that lowers special defense 20% of the time. Then starting in Generation 4, it is a physical move that lowers physical defense 20% of the time. Luckily here I get the drop on the Nidoqueen, which allows me to knock it out after 1 Hyper Potion. No Poison Point activations, and then I crit the Nidoking. Because of that I win. I don't think I deserved to win, but I'll take it for now. Notably, Tyranitar does learn Water Pulse, so if I was having problems, I could always teach that move for special damage against some of his Pokemon. It might have helped out. Okay, there's one battle before the league. It's the rival on Route 22. This is another instance where Tyranitar just doesn't care about Intimidate. The Gyarados comes in second, so early into the battle. Still, I'm able to two-shot the Venusaur, and its Razor Leaf isn't doing very much damage. Rhyhorn is also a 2-hit, and then both the Growlithe and the Alakazam are ineffective. Just because things were a little bit bumpy against Giovanni, I do some additional training in Victory Road. This levels Tyranitar up to 61, where it can naturally learn Earthquake, which is slightly more flexible than if I learned it through TM. Although in the end, I decide to say no to this move and keep my current set. I continue my training up to level 62, and then I head back to the game corner to purchase coins so that I can buy the TM for Ice Beam. I want to have this in my back pocket just in case it's required to get through Lance. Alright, now I'm ready for the Elite Four. For Lorelei, Tyranitar has the tools it needs for success. Rock Slide is super effective and deals the most damage, and Brick Break is consistent if I need it. With the more powerful move, I one-shot both the Dugong and the Cloyster and move on to the Slowbro. Then I inflict a flinch, so it's free as well. I finish it with Crunch, move on to the Lapras. Brick Break does a lot of damage, but not enough to KO. It consumes its Citrus Berry. I have some bad luck due to confusion here, but still, after a full restore, I get one more Rock Slide in and knock out her ace. Last is Jinx. I've snapped out of confusion by this point. I use Rock Slide and her final Pokemon faints. Okay, now the Elite Four member that I was really worried about, Bruno. Sandstream is pretty good here because I'm going to get chip damage against all of his fighting types, but not his Onix. And that's really where I needed it because the Onix survives with red health. Honestly, I might be doing more damage if I use Crunch. I should have probably experimented with that, but I don't. I move on to the next Onix, do chip damage to it first so he doesn't heal it, and then I knock it out. Okay, but what about the fighting types? Hitmonchan has Mach Punch, which is priority, but it's also faster because my speed was lowered and hits with Sky Uppercut, demolishing Tyranitar. Okay, I think it's time to use my 7 remaining rare candies to go up from 63 to 70 before trying this again. Now I can one-shot the first Onix, but not the second one. It lands a critical hit Earthquake, putting me in a not great position. I think what I'm going to need now is some luck. I'm faster than the Hitmonchan. It does not choose Mach Punch, which I was very surprised by. Aerial Ace one-shots, as well as the Hitmonlee, and then I move on to the Machamp. Now this is where things get really unfortunate for Tyranitar, because Aerial Ace is not able to one-shot. Also, just barely. It looks like I would need level 73 or 75 to sometimes get the one hit. Okay, Cross Chop is just gonna finish me. Nope, it misses. Therefore, he uses a potion, and I use 2 Aerial Aces, finishing his ace off. Yeah, I win with luck over Bruno. Honestly, waiting for the miss on Cross Chop would probably be faster than leveling up with Tyranitar just because it's a slow growth rate Pokemon. Next is Agatha, and she's pretty trivial. Crunch is super effective against the Ghosts. I don't have super effective damage against the Arbok, for example, and it actually does a lot of damage to me, bringing me down to orange health, but that's inconsequential because I can one-shot the remaining Pokemon using a combination of Rock Slide and Crunch. The last member of the Elite Four is Lance. He's sort of a flying type specialist, less than he is in Generation 2, and that bodes very well for Tyranitar even after the Gyarados hits me with Intimidate. Rock Slide still just one-hits. He then chooses Dragonair, which I guess is the better choice. It is able to survive and set up Safeguard. From there, Lance does a little bit of healing and I knock it out with 2 uses of Crunch. His second Dragonair is a little bit more problematic because it does know the move Thunder Wave. move. I was hoping to avoid this, but unfortunately Tyranitar gets paralyzed, and I didn't bring a Lumberry into the fight. Instead, I prioritized the Citrus Berry, which is obviously the wrong choice. Dragonite that follows gets a critical hit with Outrage, doing so much damage. Rock Slide fails to get the one hit, Dragonite consumes its Citrus Berry and then attacks with Outrage, taking me down to orange health. Luckily my status condition doesn't prevent my next attack, and I move on to the Aerodactyl. Okay, am I gonna do it? I think I might do it! I survive a critical hit Ancient Power, land Rock Slide, and Aerodactyl faints. Okay, time for the champion. I am ready to clock in with this pseudo-legendary. Up first is Pidgeot. Of course, Rock Slide one-hits. Next he sends in Gyarados, triggering Intimidate. It's annoying. I'm not able to one-hit, and then the water type uses Hydro Pump. It only does about a third though. I was expecting more. He full restores, but that doesn't give him one more hit. And then Venusaur comes in, and it's definitely not that good in this fight. Its best move is Solar Beam. First it sets up with Sunny Day, and then I knock it out with 2 uses of Aerial Ace, so it doesn't even get to attack. Rhydon's next. I go for Brick Break for super effective damage. It does less than half. Luckily, the Rhydon misses Rock Tomb, so my speed is left intact. I choose Crunch because it's special, and yes, it does more damage, allowing me to 2-hit. The champion chooses Alakazam next, which makes very little sense. The only thing it can do is set up with Reflect, but I'm using Crunch, which is special damage, and I crit. So his only Pokemon left over is Arcanine. Now my attack's been lowered by 2 stages, so I don't want to be using Rock Slide, especially when Reflect is up. Instead, I choose Crunch. And Tyranitar gets a critical hit again. It has scored so many of these. That knocks Arcanine out in a single hit, and I clock in with my first playthrough result. Tyranitar gets a time of 1 hour 30 minutes and 44 seconds, with 5 resets, 0 blackouts at level 72, with a game time of 5 hours and 43 minutes. Now, what about the post game? Because this is where Bruno gets much more difficult. And yeah, I should show you some of the Lorelei footage, but overall, she's just completely ineffective against Tyranitar. Okay, so let's move on to Bruno. I'm level 75 going into this battle. First of all, Steelix is awful because it survives 2 hits from Brick Break. That means he's going to use potions on it, buying time. Meanwhile, he's using Rock Tomb, lowering my speed, so that when the Hitmonchan comes in, it can move first. Well, unless it goes for counter, which is low priority, I'm not sure why it did that. I one-shot with Aerial Ace. Then Hitmonlee's moveset is quite peculiar. It has Mega Kick, Foresight, Earthquake, and Rock Slide. Why does it have Foresight and no fighting type moves? Is it to set it up for Pokemon later in the battle? Is that how Foresight works? I'm not entirely sure. Anyways, it goes for Earthquake, doing a bit of damage, but I knock it out. Although, the Machamp, when it doesn't miss Cross Chop, it completely crushes me. This was by far the best fight I had against Bruno. In the next battle, I try to use Ice Beam against the Steelix instead of Brick Break. This does 2-shot, which is much better. Although the Hitmonchan that's next is speed tied with Tyranitar because of Rock Tomb. It goes for Sky Uppercut, wins the tie, and one-shots. Not good at all. I was thinking maybe I need to freeze the Steelix so that I don't get hit by Rock Tomb. Although, sometimes the Hitmonchan also survives Aerial Ace. That's bad. After a loss to the Hitmonlee, I tried one more time, but I decided to black out and level up a little bit more. I also want to change my moveset. Crunch is not that useful because I can use Rock Slide against Agatha, so I'm going to replace it with Substitute. I also deposit all my HM users in case I need to continuously black out against Bruno. I'm still level 75, but what I'm hoping is that Substitute will survive one Rock Tomb. And it does. Because of that, I'll have time to knock out the Steelix using Brick Break, and then I have a defense in place for one of the fighting types. Although with my speed intact, I move first against the Hitmonchan, and like we saw before, sometimes I one-hit with Aerial Ace. I'm faster than Hitmonlee, it's less bulky, so I'm able to knock it out in one hit as well and arrive at the Machamp. Okay, this is so much better. Now, Aerial Ace can 2-hit. Well, that's what I was expecting, but in this case I one-shot because of a crit. There is another one. Well done, Tyranitar. With that, there's only one Steelix left over, and I was about to say that it's pretty easy to clean up, but it's not, because I cannot 2-shot using Brick Break. Because of this, it squeezes in an Iron Tail, doing massive damage, taking Tyranitar down to red health, and then Bruno uses a full restore. Okay, I think what we need is a critical hit or a miss from Iron Tail. Can I get one of those things? And the answer is no, I can't. So unfortunately, Steelix knocks Tyranitar out. I tried again, this time being more conservative with my substitute use, but still I'm not able to survive the Steelix. I'm starting to utilize blackout training here, but still progress is slow. I'm not level 77 by the time I'm facing Bruno next, and the next major improvement to damage is going to be at level 78. Now though, in most cases I am able to make it back to the Steelix, and this time with full health. Because once again, I critical hit the Machamp with Aerial Ace. This is awesome, keep going Tyranitar. Can we just get some crits on the Steelix now? And the answer unfortunately is no, but the first attack from it breaks my substitute, the second one does damage, Bruno heals, then he attacks one more time, but this isn't enough to knock Tyranitar out. So I pull through with a victory. I no longer have Crunch for Agatha, but I can set up Substitute to dodge all her annoying status conditions. From there, Rock Slide just kind of sweeps her team. I don't really know what to tell you. I have some complications on the final Gengar where it breaks my substitute and I have to reset it up, but this is basically irrelevant. After that's only Crobat, and Rock Slide is obviously super effective. Before Lance, I teach Ice Beam in the place of Brick Break. I wanted a special move because the Gyarados is going to use Intimidate. That said, it's also going to spam Thunder Wave, so I can set up Substitute essentially for free while it just spams the status condition and does nothing. From there, Dragonite 1 is a one-shot. The Aerodactyl breaks my Substitute with Earthquake. Ice Beam does not one-shot. I re-establish Substitute, but it breaks it again. Very annoying. Luckily, I take it down and move on to the Kingdra, but I don't have my defense in place anymore. I really thought it was going to spam Surf against me for a lot of damage, but instead it starts setting up Dragon Dance. The chip damage from Sandstream is actually really helpful here. I think I'm going to two-turn. Well, I would have if I didn't miss with Rock Slide. Fine, I guess that's a reset to Lance. Okay, so here's how to beat the Kingdra. It's a super in-depth strategy. Use Rock Slide, and then you get a flinch. Because of the flinch, the Kingdra can't do anything, and then you knock it out for free. The Dragonite that follows is a one-shot with Ice Beam, and I've made it back to the champion. Okay, first is Heracross, which is technically a fighting type, but its only fighting type move is counter, so it's not going to be able to do 4 times damage to Tyranitar. Knowing that it's probably going to try to speed control me with Rock Tomb, I set up using Substitute, and I accurately predicted its move. This means my Substitute survives. I can use Aerial Ace and knock out his lead. Next is Gyarados. I have blocked Intimidate, which is perfect. Rock Slide, then one-shots. Arcanine's next. Another Intimidate user blocked. Rock Slide also one-hits. This is going really well. Venusaur comes in next. I miss a Rock Slide. It sets up Sunny Day, and then Aerial Ace fails to knock out, so my substitute is broken by Earthquake. Interesting, it did not choose Solar Beam. I wonder why it went for Earthquake in that scenario. I knock it out on the next turn and move on to the champion's Tyranitar. This is where things get a bit frustrating. I miss another Rock Slide. Earthquake does more than a third to me. While I am healing health with leftovers every turn, my Rock Slide just isn't doing enough damage, and his Tyranitar gets me before I get it. I was trying to freeze there with Ice Beam at the very end. It didn't work. Maybe the flinch chance was better to go for. I don't really know. Anyways, I make it back to the Tyranitar in the very next battle, this time with my substitute, and without bad accuracy from Rock Slide. Even with a healing item on the Tyranitar, this time my Tyranitar pulls through, making it to the champion's final Pokemon, Alakazam. This thing has been awful to face before, specifically in the Mr. Mime versus Mewtwo versus Hypno. I snuck that one in there if you didn't watch the video. I recommend you go back and check it out. Anyways, Alakazam isn't going to be awful today. Shadow Ball's coverage is ineffective against Tyranitar, and with that, I clock in with my post-league time. 29 minutes and 19 seconds with 6 resets, 2 blackouts at level 79 with a cumulative game time of 7 hours and 17 minutes. Okay, tier list time brought to you by all of my Patreon supporters. Thank you for letting me engage in this massive undertaking of completing the main series games with every species. This first playthrough list is only evolutionary lines, and today Tyranitar's results earned it a placement at the top of the C tier ahead of Porygon. In comparison with Dragonite, it played much better, I think largely because Dragonite starts as Dratini, which is awful in the early game. Wrap is unacceptably bad after Generation 1. Still, both of these pseudo-legendaries don't really live up to their potential in this format when they have to evolve from their first stage. It really holds them back when speedrunning the game. I'm excited for the future when I put these two together in a versus this video and try them again in FireRed starting fully evolved. But as you can see, I've only ranked 30 out of 81 Pokemon, so there's still much more to do in this format first. Moving over to the post-game tier list, Tyranitar fared just a little bit better. It earns itself the last placement in the B tier behind Hitmonchan. Interestingly enough, just a little bit slower than it was Aerodactyl, another rock type. I think after this year, I can confidently say that the rock type is one of the worst types overall for solo challenges. That is game agnostic. But you know what's even worse for a solo challenge than a rock type? A Gimmickmon that has only access to one move. So I will see you next time in the FireRed season finale when I take on the game with only a Ditto. It's gonna be really fun and really painful. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, it means the world to me. Now, if you've made it this far, you are incredible. Daily December continues tomorrow. I'll see you then.